understand that there's media propaganda. They might want to cause a division, but does that negate that the officer was in the wrong and could have handled the situation better?
I mean, from what I know about Ferguson, and I've been to meetings with the police union out there. You know, we get together as union leaders on occasion. You know, very, very difficult situation. I mean, there was a lot going on there. That officer, for example, did not know that Mr. Brown had been involved in an aggravated robbery of the liquor store. Mm-hmm. Mr. Brown knew that. So when the police officer drove up on him, he had...
Well, he stole some cigarettes and walked out the... You know, it wasn't... Well, it was a robbery, but listen, it's not like...
It's on video, so you can just look at the video.
Yeah, I seen the video. I'm saying he grabbed the stuff and
then he shoved the...
Kind of threatened
and then he shoved the old... Yeah. Well, I mean,
it was like a bully kind of...
It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, you call it a bully. I call it the real...
You have to go by the law.
The law is that's an aggravated robbery.
Okay.
All right, and that's the difference in perspective. You know, that we got to try to bridge, but the reality.
So how do you think that ties into him getting shot numerous times?
Well, because he reached in the car, he was fighting for the gun with the officer who was simply asking him to get off the road.
Do you really believe that?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that.
Out of your several decades of policing, has that ever happened?
What, guys walking the road?
Someone just reaches into the police car and grabs the gun? Has that ever happened?
How did his DNA get inside the police car? How did his DNA get on the gun? How did his DNA get on the clothing of the officer that was in the police car? The first time he got shot was the police officer shooting him from inside the car because he's reaching in, punching the guy in the face. That's eyewitness accounts, black eyewitness accounts. So this is where we start to break down.
Have you seen? Has that ever happened in your years on the force?
I can tell you this.
Okay.
I will tell you this. I have been shot at 4 times on this job.
Okay.
4 times. I have returned fire 1 time on this job and didn't hit, and that literally was stop shooting at me. Stop shooting at me. That, you see what I'm doing, right? I'm not out there looking and I'm stop shooting at us, right? My partner and I. They were shooting at he was shooting at a EMS wagon that was there to treat his girlfriend that he shot. All right, and the EMS wagon pulled up, and he pulls up on the porch, starts making Swiss cheese of the EMS wagon. We pull up, he starts shooting at us. He's got 2 kids up on the porch with him. So I'm not interested at all in trying to shoot him because I'm not living, and none of us would live normal lives if we accidentally shot a bystander, especially a child. So they're
at the same token. If we're gonna say police do not wake up and put on their badge with the intention to shoot people, at the same token, would you think that an unarmed teenager, that yes, he might have committed aggravated robbery, but on the same token, he was on his way to college. Nobody is perfect. Mike Brown.
We're talking about Michael Brown again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ferguson, right? Now,
how big was that guy?
I don't know.
Well,
he was. I think he was at least 6 feet.
6'5", about 280 pounds. We classify him as a teenager. Well, how old was he? He was an adult.
17, 18?
No, he was an adult, so that means that he was at least 18.
He would be charged as an adult. Is that
no, he's an adult. He's 18 years old. You're an adult in that state and in the state of Ohio. You're considered an adult. You have to take the totality of the circumstances.
Well, the picture I'm trying to paint is that I don't think he was. If we're gonna say cops aren't waking up to shoot people, I don't think, even if they're giant 6 foot, 7 foot black 18-year-old adults, are waking up saying, "I'm gonna punch a cop and take his gun." If we're gonna be fair on both sides,
Sure.
I'm just saying commonsensical.
So what? So what are we
logically.
to believe then? That this officer drove up to Mr. Brown because he was jaywalking or walking the street, whatever the
That
silly.
sounds believable.
Okay. Are we to believe that that officer drove up there, told him to leave, and then just for no apparent reason got out of the car and started shooting him?
Well, we don't know what happened between.
We do know.
Well, I'm saying we weren't there. I'm saying we don't know what happened. We can go by for forensics and autopsy, but from the point where he
witness
asked
accounts
him,
and video.
yeah, from the point where he asked him to get out of the street to him laying dead in the street, everything gets fuzzy. But
Well, it gets fuzzy to you, but it doesn't get fuzzy to
Okay.
the people that investigated. It gets fuzzy because there's a false narrative out there. It gets fuzzy because there's people out there saying, yeah, I saw him. He was on his knees with his hands in the air, and that officer just came up and shot him. Well, that creates the fuzz, the fuzziness of it that you're referring to. But we have to go by forensics evidence, statements, the credibility of the people giving the statements. You know, and that's how these investigations are done. That officer did not go up there and shoot a guy that was jaywalking.
well, no, that's I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, what we know for sure, whether we say it's fuzzy or not, is that regardless of his size, he was unarmed and he was shot dead.
Well,
That's, we do
sure,
know that.
I don't dispute that.
So do you?
But you can't say regardless of his size, because that is a factor that we have to consider.
Okay.
He's legally, we have to consider that. Much easier for a 100-pound female police officer to confront, and if you're a pretty big guy, if you came at a 100-pound female police officer in an aggressive manner, she's going to be
shot in the leg.
she's going to be justified much sooner to use force, including deadly force, on you than I would be, because I'm your size.
Right, and that's a good segue to the next, because I don't want to stay on the Ferguson thing too much.
Yeah.
This shooting to kill and shooting to wound, where do you stand?
Well, we don't shoot to kill. We have never, in my 23 years, said, you're going to shoot and you're going to keep shooting until that guy is dead. That does not happen. We shoot to immobilize the threat. We shoot to take the threat away, whatever that is. And I can prove that to you. Here in the city of Cleveland, last year in 2015, we had 7 police-involved shootings. All of them were justified, through the investigations. And by then we have the Department of Justice in here, so the feds and everybody, God and everybody is looking at these things. So last year in 2015, we had 7 police-involved shootings, 9 uses of deadly force. In Cleveland, a use of deadly force could be hitting you in the head with something, either a gun or a police radio, or, things are really bad if you're in hand-to-hand combat like that. There's something really, really dangerous going on. So they consider that, and they investigate it as a use of deadly force. So we had 9 altogether. 7 of them were police-involved shootings. 4 of those police-involved shootings, we were returning fire. We were shot at and returning fire. 2 of the 7 police-involved shootings resulted in death. The other 5 people, we got medical attention to them very quickly. We performed. I can show you the videos of the guys. Now we have the medical kits in the car, put a tourniquet on, and credited with saving lives, saving the life. 5 people. So we've never been trained to shoot to kill. That's part of the false narrative. Shoot to wound is absolutely, we will never agree to that or allow that. That puts us in a no-win situation, because if you're telling me that there's enough reason for me to pull my gun and point it at you, that means that my life is in jeopardy, or someone else's life is in jeopardy at the hands of whoever I'm dealing with, correct? Right? you're telling me to shoot the gun out of his hand. I've heard this, right? So I know it's not just you saying it. That is television victimizing us.
Well,
If there's not a reason to use deadly force, then the gun should either just be displayed or not be out. You know, there's a reason to use deadly force, whether we like it or not, or whether we believe it or not. There's a reason to use deadly force when someone is standing up and pulling a gun out of their waistband. There's a reason for us to take those types of actions. Shooting to wound is not an option because it puts us in a no-win situation. If I'm shooting you in the leg and I hit you in the chest, because it's not the movies, you know. Jason Bourne, the Bourne Supremacy movies, that guy shoots about 1 million people in that movie, and he's running and jumping and shooting.
So in the case of Tamir, instead of driving, because we know with the gazebo how it's structured, they had to drive up on the sidewalk to reach the gazebo.
They drove in the grass area.
Yeah. Do you feel that better procedure should have been taken?
Well, and here's the thing with this, all right? Those officers know that rec center, all right? And this goes back to we have to take everything that we know about this situation and take it into account. We know, for example, that there were 42 calls for service that involved guns, robberies, gang activity at that rec center in the previous 7 months before Tamir Rice. So we know that it's a dangerous place. Heartless Felons, that was their clubhouse there for a while. So we take gun runs at that particular location very seriously. Usually they're, you know, especially if it's an older individual that's calling. And if you listen to what that gentleman said, why is he calling? If he thinks that it's a gun, because that's what people will want you to believe that he said, but if you listen to exactly what he said, he says, I don't know if it's a toy or not, but he's scaring the shit out of me with it. You know, that we have to take that stuff into consideration. Now, here's the thing. Rec center is open. So we as police officers, those guys are familiar with that. They knew exactly where the swings were, which is where they said he was. He transitioned over the gazebo, but it's the same area. So instead of coming down the long driveway, so a bad guy potentially with a gun can see us coming and do something or get away, because we want to catch the guy with the gun. We don't want to just scare him away. We want to catch him. We don't want to shoot him. We want to catch him. And give him the potential to run into the rec center. That's what they're thinking. That rec center was open. The last thing in the world that we want is somebody potentially with a gun to run into that rec center, because you have to agree that we would have a whole bunch of really bad problems potentially if that happened. So that's why they came in the angle, the way that they came in. They knew he was.
Let's state that he was by himself, right?
He was by himself.
You said the Heartless Felons and the gangs. There wasn't.
Yeah.
You can't really say there's a gang activity because he was by himself.
Well, there's a history of gang activity at that location.
But then that could be anybody that's there. I mean, because you have to, whether the dispatcher is right or wrong, do you agree that the officer, a properly trained officer, has to use some kind of discernment into what they're going to? Like if you're in a war, as you say you were, and you're going into combat and you get a dispatch to go somewhere, you have to take into accountability that this person's information, that's related information, it might not be correct or it could be inaccurate to some extent. So I have to use discernment.
There's no way that you can train for that possibility. You go with the information that you're given. Okay. This is a male pulling a gun on people in the park. There's 45 minutes of video of him walking up to people that he didn't even know, according to the statements, pulling that gun out and pointing it. I mean, that's not a child playing in the park. That's somebody that's not doing something that's right. You know, he's pointing at cars that were driving by, out on the sidewalk. You know, that's not me speculating that. That's video evidence. There's video evidence of that most people didn't see. You know, and that's unfortunate. That's the bigger problem. if they came out with everything in the video and all that, then we're not going to have all the I don't think that we're going to have the controversy, because law-abiding citizens are going to look at that going, what the hell is that kid doing? Why is he doing that? Right? So they get the call. They show up. Guys with guns run from us. That is our experience as police officers.
Run, though.
He didn't run.
Okay.
Which if you're a police, now this is where.
Yeah, because the video, him pointing the gun, I'm just focusing on that 3 seconds of them zooming up, and shooting him, and him, they say, reaching in his waistband. I think that, is the procedure supposed to be, if there's you don't want him to get away if he has a gun, do you announce on the speaker that, okay, so that's not police procedure?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
He clearly saw that car coming.
Yeah, you would have to see.
He looked right to his left, so he saw that car coming. He knew exactly why that car was coming towards him, right? He chose not to run. And I'm not blaming a 12-year-old for this, but I'm not going to blame the cops for it either. It's an absolute tragedy what happened on every avenue of this thing, right? But the bottom line is that the police officers have to take into consideration the totality of the circumstances, what they know. They know that it's not uncommon to have a gun run at this particular rec center. They know that, here's the description. They both keyed on the camouflage skull cap that Tamir was wearing. He's the only kid, like you said, he's the only kid in the park that's got a camouflage skull cap on. They came up through the backwoods to try to cut him off and prevent him from running, because people with guns run from us, to prevent him from running into the rec center. That's what these cops are thinking.
And I can understand that. You don't want the suspect to get away. They're armed.
I don't want him running into the rec center.
You don't want them to endanger other civilians.
Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense. What is the window between you're engaging an armed suspect so he doesn't hurt innocent civilians and killing him? Like, what is, or at least telling him to put his weapon down? Well, several times.
In this particular case, they didn't have time to do that. Now this is part of the miscommunication. As a police officer, if I'm looking at a guy and I'm pretty sure that he's the guy that's got a gun, because somebody from radio, some civilian is calling me, telling me this kid with the camouflage hat on's got a gun, I know that in my mind he's got a gun. Guys with guns run from us. All right. As a police officer, I'm telling you that is the
I know
that's what we assume. A guy with a gun's going to run from us.
Or at least a warrant or something.
Something.
Yeah, right.
As we're pulling up, this guy, what does he do? He stands up. He looks at us. He actually walks towards the police car. Now, to citizens like yourself, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. To a police officer, that sets up a lot of red flags.
You think he's armed.
You think he's armed. He's walking.
He's not running. He's engaging. He's ready.
And that's where we ended up. And then you add the pulling the gun out of the waistband. Now, Tamir Rice was not going to get in a gunfight with the Cleveland police. I know that. Everybody that has an ounce of common sense knows that, right? But that's where his youth and inexperience came into play, because if he had just stayed, if he had run, if he had just stayed put, if he didn't move, there's a lot of things that could have happened.
We've seen people get shot for running and stuff get planned on. I mean, you know.
That's, I'm the cop coming up. This is what's going through my mind. Oh, there he is. We got to keep him from getting into the rec center. He's going to run. We got to keep him from getting in the rec center. We're driving up. He's not running. This is my mindset. He's not running. Why is he not running? He's got a gun. That's the guy, camouflage hat. He's got a gun. Why isn't he running? Oh my God, he's walking towards us. Why is he walking towards us? And this is all happening right now. Why is he walking towards us? Oh my God, he's pulling a gun out of his waistband. You know, the only conclusion that
But the time you said, oh my God, he's walking towards us, he's pulling out a gun, Tamir Rice was already dead. You said everything, the time it took you to say that short sentence, it was less than the amount of time Tamir Rice had to surrender or even talk to the police.
And again, you know, it's the totality of circumstances. There was it's not a lack of training in this case. I would have done the exact same thing with 23 years on the job. If I was confronted with that exact same set of circumstances, I would have had, you have to. It's not fair to my wife to expect me to sit and wait to see if somebody at a rec center that's known for gun violence is going to shoot a bullet at me.
You didn't know if he was known for gun. You're saying the area.
The area.
But
they were expecting him to run. That's why they drove in there. They were going 7 miles an hour, by the way. That video.
Well, let's say this.
That video makes the way that video jumps. It makes that car look like it's going a lot faster than it was, but it was going 7 miles an hour. When they hit the brakes, because now they've all of a sudden Frank realized this guy's not running. Now he's walking. Now he's coming towards us. Oh my! He's pulling a gun out. He is standing on the brakes, sitting right in that chair, sitting right in that chair, telling me he was standing on the brakes. And you ever been in a car with the anti-lock brakes?
Yeah.
That's what was going on with these cars. With these Chargers are terrible, terrible police cars. But it was the anti-lock brake system engaged, and that car literally slid 17 feet. You know, they can tell scientifically.
Was it the brakes, or was it because he was going so fast?
No, he was going 7 miles an hour, according to the AVL. There's systems in there that tell us how fast these cars are going. That the systems tell you if the lights or sirens are on. The systems tell you when the brakes are applied. You know, all that stuff it's all, we live in a technological
how many, let's say this, how many calls do the police get with someone playing with a gun and toying with others in the park? Is it normal to receive a call like this?
It's unfortunately, yeah, we get a lot. See that letter right there? If you want to take a look at that, there's a young man who, and this was right after, probably 4 months after Tamir Rice. He's walking down the street with an AR-15, and a toy AR-15 that was painted black, and he's hitting street signs and stuff. Well, some little old lady called, says a guy with a gun down there, and he was a bigger kid. The cops got there, the 5th District, this happened in 5th District, they got there with their rifle, and the kid did everything that he was told to do. Everything he was told to do. He didn't move, he didn't. All right? They called me and says, what do you want us to do with this? I says, take him home and see how his parents react. If they're mad at you for pointing a gun at him, then take him to the DH. If they're mad at him for being dumb enough to go out in this day and age with a gun that's altered to look real, very important fact, if they're mad at him, then call me back and let me know. They called me back, said that they're mad at him. I said, okay. I went out there and I talked to the kid. And I said, listen, this is what we're going to do. You're going to write me a letter. You're going to write me a story right there of the lessons that you learn. We're all allowed to make mistakes, man. It's how you respond to those mistakes and what you learn from them that defines you as a person. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to write this. I said, don't try to flim-flam me, young man. If you try to flim-flam me, I'm going to put a case on you, and you're going to be in the system. All right? I don't want to do that. So you tell me what you learned. And his parents were both sitting right there, African-American family. And we went back. I said, I'll be back the next day. And we went back the next day, and we got that report from him. And I left my business card. I check up on him now. Every once in a while, his mom will call me. And it's a good, I could show you song and verse, the number of guns, because I have my guys sending them to me now. I want to know when there's a kid in the park playing with a real looking gun and how that thing ends up. The totality of the circumstances with Tamir Rice are absolutely tragic. you know. And I think a bigger factor in that whole incident was where that was happening. You know, it was happening in a rec center. It was happening in a rec center that's a known gang hangout. It's happening in a rec center where there's known gun and gang violence. People have been shot up there. I've buried 2 police officers within a block and a half of that rec center. You know, so we're not talking about Candyland here.
Yeah. There you go.
This is a toy gun with bullets that was taken off a young kid in the 2nd district. A young white kid in the 2nd district. He was using it to rob people at the bus stop. Do what the cops tell you to do. Man, they tell you to drop the gun, drop the gun. Nothing good is going to happen if that doesn't happen.